Musicians Viewpoints. This podcast is by and for local musicians in all localities. I'm your host, Kevin Ronco. Hey, this is Kevin Ronco, and we are due for another exciting episode of Musicians Viewpoints. And today I'm excited to introduce to you Kevin Elmore, and I'm honored to have him on today. We have a great talk, and we just came to see talking. So I'll get right on to it because it's a long interview. Enjoy. Hey, this is Musicians Viewpoints, and today I have Kevin Elmore here. He's a little different than other guests I've had. Everyone else prior to this, there were people I've known through prior experience. So this is more like digging into understanding somebody who I don't know all that well and who maybe we'll work together at some point. So today,
I would love to do that.
Yeah, I think so. So Kevin Elmore. So what makes you tick? What's your motivation for being a musician?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. Okay. Well, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I don't know if I saw it on TV. At that time, it would have been like Bob Dylan or maybe Neil Young or somebody, or John Denver, given my parents. But there was a picture of a guy sitting on a stool playing guitar and singing songs. Something about that was like, that's what I want to do. And then things have
Interesting.
evolved since then, um, to a much broader musical breadth of style and all that, which is weird because I'm not a good songwriter. Like words aren't my main thing. Written a couple songs, but uh, all of it together on my own. But usually it's a collaboration when I make songs. But I like to do more instrumental stuff and just to kind of connect and contextualize emotions for the listener.
Cool. Yeah, I get that hearing the stuff you shared with me. Yeah, which you do, I think, very well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what was the first band that you played in? What was that like? Tell me about that.
Well, I'm going to date myself pretty hard here, but it was the 80s and hair metal was all the rage because guitar player, and had a hair metal band called Truant, which was, I don't know, kind of fun, kind of silly. And we just played a lot of covers, a couple of originals that we had written, and covering things like White Snake, and we had a Motley Crue tune, and we had some Cinderella in our set, things like that. We were all 16. Oh, we played some Poison. Um, this leads into a fun story. I wasn't a huge fan of Poison, but their songs were good. They were fun, and we were covering "Talk Dirty to Me." And
Oh yeah,
we're
yeah.
in rehearsal. Yeah, we're in rehearsal one morning or one afternoon or something after school, and my mom calls down into the basement, and my guitar player has a phone call, which is no cell phones, comes to the house phone at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just weird that he got a call at my house. Turns out it's his dad who sold motorcycles. And he's like, "Hey, you guys want to deliver some motorcycles to some band named Poison? They all look like girls." And we're like, "What?" So we ended up pushing a little tiny Honda 50 through the nicest hotel in Kansas City, and uh, and they took us out to Japanese hibachi dinner that night. We got to hang out with them. It was kind of a kind of a good thrill for us.
Wow.
So that was fun. But yeah, that was a fun band. We played a high school class party out in the country, which was a riot. It was amazing. It was like 500 people there, and we played with some friends of ours that were a little older and a lot more accomplished than we were. So we opened for them. Had three hay trailers arranged uh, into a stage with a drum riser and a proscenium. So we get out there and pretend like we were on the big stage, and we had lights made out of Folgers cans and
Oh yeah.
jerry rigged wiring and stuff like that. So it was we had the whole package. It was just janky, but it was a lot of fun. Ripped up jeans,
Mm-hmm.
mullets, the whole 9 yards. It was an interesting time.
Okay, we must be around the same age. This sounds very familiar.
Yeah, I'm 51, so
Okay, yeah, I'm 54, so yeah, those were the days. Um, but as you look back, you know, you, these things really stand out. Speaking of, what band have you
yeah.
played in that you really enjoyed? I know you're supposed to enjoy all of them. For me, it hasn't always worked out that way, but the one that you really enjoyed that you still remember.
Well, I think the one I had the most fun in was I was playing guitar in a Salem band called All in Perspective. This is about 2009, 10, 11, right around in there. And I'd been practicing a lot, and my guitar playing was pretty on point. Probably the height of my guitar playing, 'cause things have gotten weird over the last several years. But yeah, we had a sax, bass, guitar, drums, and a vocalist, and we're all really good friends, and we just had the music was weird, um, really hard to classify. It was basically rock, but it was kind of, I don't know what other band you would compare it to, but it was really fun. I tried to throw some like Grant Green influenced stuff into this like pseudo pop rock context, and that was kind of fun. But the saxophone player, Jay King, she's amazing, and she could steal the show all the time. And she did. People loved us, and we had a lot of fun. That was a good band. I really miss it.
I get that. Missing a
As
band,
bands
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah, as bands do, it came to an end, and
Hmm.
people went off in separate ways and
Yeah,
things like that.
it's okay that they do end. I think there's a lot of work involved. So,
Right. Yeah,
and
it kind of ended right as we were really getting good and making big plans, and one of the members didn't want to get out of the small thing. And
mm,
yeah, I won't talk about. I'm not gonna
the fear of
throw any
success.
shade on
Yeah,
anybody, but yeah,
that's something a pattern I noticed over my time with bands is there's always seemed like there was some person who was afraid of actually uh, going to that success level in a lot of cases. It would just hold the whole
yeah,
project back sometimes. Really frustrating.
it's weird. Yeah, or
Yeah,
just kill the project entirely.
yeah, because of their fear. Yeah, and later you're like,
Yeah,
oh my god, why didn't we do something about that? But yeah,
right.
but you don't know
Yeah,
when you're
we
in the
did
middle
end
of it.
up replacing that member for a short time, but the vibe was so different,
Mm.
and then
It's all, yeah, chemistry is so big with the band. Yeah.
yeah, but we had a percussionist who was married to the vocalist, and he passed away,
Oh.
which was a huge tragedy. He was
Mm.
only like 56, I think, at that time,
Mm.
and so that was, you know, kind of the final blow to the band at that point. He had a a huge influence on the personality of the band.
Yeah, a lot
So
of times it's that initial chemistry that you're counting on, and then when someone is kind of letting down everyone else, it's really tragic. Yeah, in this
yeah,
case, yeah, really bad. So yeah, I'm sorry about your friend.
thanks. Yeah, still have stuff that he gave me or that kind of inherited from him,
Hmm.
things like that. Yeah,
I can
but
understand that.
yeah.
So, what was your worst gig mare? Something that just like this was supposed to be a great gig and it turned out somehow the opposite. I know I've had those.
Okay, this goes back. This goes back to the Truant band from the '80s and in high school. They were the hair metal band, and we were one of the kind of very popular gals invited us to play at the party that she was throwing. Um, she had rented out this 300 capacity dance hall in a large barn kind of thing. And this is also in Kansas City. And apparently she was popular in like 3 or 4 other high schools too. And so like 1,000 people show up to this freaking party and everything's way overpacked. We ended up having to tape off an area for the band to have like any kind of place to play. And, things as the night went on, people got more and more intoxicated and everything. A couple guys started just throwing beer at each other for kicks. And then they jumped over the tape into the band area and were getting beer all over me and the guitar player and the singer. I was playing bass in that band. And our lighting guy came over and said, "Hey, get the hell out of here." Like, and they just decked him, like knocked him to the ground. He ended up having getting stitches. And at that point, I was not having any of that. And I was playing a 1982 Ibanez Destroyer 2 bass. So basically an aircraft carrier with 4 strings.
Yep.
And I picked it up like an axe and went after the guy. And I'm so glad that guy had the little bit of common sense to get out of the way because I was this is so against my normal vibe, but I was gonna hit him over the head with it, and that
You,
probably would have got
wow.
got me in a lot of trouble because I don't think the guy would have been okay after that. The
You
bass
just
is
went total
heavy.
Pete Townsend on him. Wow.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, even even full on Keith Moon. Just take the whole rig and throw it at him. But
Well, he invaded your
eventually,
space.
yeah. Well, he was throwing beer at us, and we're electric and potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
And yeah, so as the night went on, they eventually headed out after I chased him off. And um, after a while, we hear a couple, I don't know, 3 or 4 gunshots.
Mm.
And turns out it was the people who owned the venue came out and they were shooting shotguns up in the air to break up the party. And people scrambled and were freaking out. And I don't know, it was chaos. I don't even remember with this part. But after everything cleared up, the people were gone. We were getting ready to take down our gear, and the guys tried to confiscate our gear. And it
Mm.
was pulling teeth to convince them, like, dude, we're just hired hands here. Like, this is not our responsibility.
Hmm.
And it was,
That's getting
uh,
weird. Yeah.
yeah, we were like these big old dudes and overalls and shotguns.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a pretty intimidating for a bunch of 16, 17-year-old kids.
Mm-hmm.
But that was intense. The only pay we got was our singer was 21, so he could get into the liquor store, well, legally, and return the kegs for the deposit money. It was like $60. I don't know how many kegs there were. It's quite a few, but yeah, it was like, well, that was an interesting waste of time for us. But yeah, I've got a pretty good story now. Sometimes you see those what's your worst gig ever questions on Facebook, and I'll
Yeah, yeah.
type it out and usually get a lot of the whoa reacts. But yeah,
Well, yeah.
it's not like I fell through a stage or anything, or you know, having Hell's Angels as security. That Rolling Stones incident, that's pretty intense.
Oh, yeah. Altamont. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Hell's Angels, right, right.
right.
That's when the 60s took a turn for, yeah.
Right. And a little precursor to Woodstock 99 there.
Oh, Woodstock 99. Fred Durst. I really think he was the kind of pivot point in that whole thing where he encouraged them to rip the place apart and be as angry as possible. That
Oh,
was really
interesting.
irresponsible, I thought, but it's just my take on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Surprised he wasn't over at that point, but
It's interesting. He's been interviewed lately, and when he's asked about that, he will not answer. So that tells me a lot. So,
oh yeah. Sounds like he's got a little bit of regret and a little bit of uh like people just don't understand.
well, I mean, as someone who gets on stage and is in front of people and realizing what I say and do could affect people's moods and where that goes from there, I do think about that.
Yeah, for sure. And you'd think that somebody who does that for a living is rather successful at it. I don't know how successful he was at that point in his career, but he was, he was still doing it. You, you know how to do that. You know how to affect the mood of a crowd.
Right.
That's what you're doing all the time, whether you're trying to make them laugh or trying to get them to dance or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't get into a dance band and play the crunch. That's a good way to clear the dance floor.
But I do remember that because I was at the time a full-time musician, and I was watching that before heading out to a gig, and I thought, oh my God, is this what, being at a higher level of the music industry is?
Oh
It
yeah,
definitely worried me that I was in on the wrong career trajectory at that point. They're burning
right.
the place down. I don't know if it's not quite what I envisioned for
Yeah, it
so
depends
yeah,
on the place, I guess, but
that would be a true gig mayor in my book. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, anything to do with that festival would have been a horrible nightmare.
Hmm. Pure greed. When it just, yeah, and call it
Right,
Woodstock with the smiley faces everywhere. No wonder they burned it down.
right. Yeah. Almost almost poetic justice, but still tragic.
Yeah, I think tragic
All
for
the
music. Yeah.
yeah, and for a lot of the people that had pretty serious crimes committed against them
Hmm.
being in attendance there.
Yeah, you must have watched the same special I did on Netflix. It
I
just,
caught a lot of it secondhand from people that have seen it. I've watched
oh
part
really?
of it, but I didn't make it all the way through
But yeah, there was some really terrible stuff that went on. Yeah.
for sure.
Anyway, changing the subject. Next question: when did you first pick up an instrument, and how old were you?
I was 8 years old and I was going to church, and there was a dude that had a 12-string guitar, and I was mesmerized. So it's right after I had that, experience of seeing the guy on the stool playing guitar. I doubt it was the same guy because I remember it was on TV or something. Maybe it was Roy Clark. We were watching Hee Haw. But anyway,
Hee haw. Okay.
uh, Yeah.
It's
And
funny you mentioned that. Anyway, yeah.
it my mom wouldn't let me get a piano. So I was like, well, I got some money for a birthday or something and spent $30 on a guitar at 8 years old and took lessons for a couple of years. And my guitar teacher just like died. So hey,
Oh,
was we ready for my lesson? Like, no, your teacher died. I went into my room. It was the first experience I'd had like that, and went into my room and just cried for hours. I was 10
hmm.
at that point.
Oh, okay.
Kind of quit playing guitar for a few years.
Hmm.
Didn't pick it back up till I was 14. Yeah, I liked always wanted to be a piano player too. And for a while I was, but it's hard to carry up around a piano when you're in your 20s and moving like every 8 to 14 months.
Oh, moving and okay, yeah,
Yeah, just, the chaos of somebody's 20s is,
yeah.
piano's not really conducive to that
Guitar is
unless you're
much more
just
portable. Yeah.
right. Yeah, but I still have that guitar. I was picked it up after it had been in my parents' basement for several years, like decades, and tried to play it, and the action was so high. I was like,
Mm.
how did I stick with this for 2 years with 8-year-old fingers? Like, this hurts now.
Yeah. That I just have to, because guitar was my first instrument, and uh I had these not so great guitars. My dad would always say, "When you get good at guitar, I'll get you a good one." What I realized later is you're never going to get good on those cheap
No.
guitars. So anyway, that's why I'm a
Yeah,
drummer.
it's
I think
exactly
one of the
backwards.
reasons,
Maybe
but
so, yeah.
he might have done me a big favor. I think he did. But, yeah, unintended consequences.
Yep.
Um, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So here's one, and I really like this question. What do you think about your local music scene?
That's a much different question than it would have been, what, 3.5, 4 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Um, I have yet to super integrate into the local music scene. I live between uh, out in the country in a rural spot outside of McMinnville.
Okay.
And and then for the last 5 years, I was delivering pizzas. Got a different job now, but I was delivering pizzas, and that's, the good money is on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday when all the gigs are. So I kind of fell out of the scene um, uh, 5 years ago and lost touch with the face to face aspect. And then, of course, the pandemic happened and we lost face to face with everyone
Yeah.
there for a while. And I just haven't had a chance to get back out. Now that I have this new job, I can go out and see some shows, hopefully. It was like 90% of my motivation for getting a job where I work during the day so I can go see my friends play.
Cool. Cool. That's cool, actually.
So, but it was really robust. I really liked the the everybody knows everybody aspect of the Salem music scene
Hmm.
back in the day, and I assume it's still there. I mean, um, like how we were all kind of sluts for Facebook friends with each other, and yeah, it was cool to be part of back then, and I would assume it's cool to be part of now, but I just haven't been out there living an hour away.
Mm.
So I used to live in Monmouth and got really plugged into with that band. All in Perspective, we played in Salem a lot, and then I moved up here, and things got a little more challenging to go anywhere, whether it's Portland or Salem. But
Yeah, the
yeah,
way the state works. Yeah, if you're, I'm in Corvallis, and it's kind of like being on an island in a way. So I can get that. I
right.
get what you're saying. It's similar.
But you got a lot of good bands in Corvallis. It's a pretty robust music scene for a
Oh,
town that size.
yeah, it is, but there's not enough to support all the talent. I mean,
Well, true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
you're
never. Yeah.
not gonna make a living. It's kind of like I used to live in Lawrence, Kansas,
Hmm.
and a lot of amazing bands went through there, but it's about the same size as Corvallis. In fact, I get
Uh-huh.
similar vibes from Corvallis as I did from Lawrence. It's where
Lawrence,
University of Kansas.
Kansas. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, University of Kansas is in that town, and it's yeah, it's a cool place. But crazy stories about that place too.
Hmm.
There was a venue called the Outhouse, which has a whole documentary about it now. Just notorious. This little someone's someone's old tractor barn in the middle of a cornfield, cinder block building, probably safely held 150, 200 people, maybe 150. And didn't, it was outside of the city limits. So there was like no law enforcement. And they got these huge punk bands. It was a big punk venue. They had like Minor Threat, Bad Brains, Fugazi, and like 3,000 people showed up to Fugazi. I didn't make that show, fortunately, but yeah, highly recommend the Outhouse, the film, to
Okay.
see what kind of weird,
Okay.
surreal
Fu-
thing that was. But that's off topic.
no, not really. Fugazi, I was really a big fan of. Just looking back, especially what they were doing with their live shows and the making sure that the ticket prices were, affordable.
Hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the thing I'm focused on about, what's right or wrong about a local music scene. I think Fugazi really did have the right idea with that.
Yeah, and hats off to the Cure for kind of carrying that torch in the modern era.
True. And they're in a hard position because they're working with directly with Ticketmaster. It must be a nightmare to deal with that.
Right. But I'm glad they're standing up to that because
Yeah,
that's just insane. I
it's
don't.
just crazy. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I wanted to go see Gojira with Metallica. I was mostly just to see Gojira because you know Metallica now is a very different band than the band I fell in love with back in the day.
yeah,
But yeah, tickets were like $180 for nosebleeds, and I'm like, yeah, no, just no, I'm not going to do that.
yeah. Not when you just step back and you're like, what do the how much money do the corporations think people how much money do the corporations think people have that they can afford for this?
Right.
I don't think
Well,
they're
the
thinking
absurd
about it
part
at
is
all.
people figure it out and go, and the place sells out great, and they're like, okay, people
Hmm.
can afford it, and it's like, not to boycott the big bands because the big bands are awesome.
No, I know we went to see Roger Waters. We did, but then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore because we can't afford it really. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
but you pick and choose, I guess. But I really am like we were like getting to the point of we went to see a band at the Crystal Ballroom before the pandemic happened. It was the what was their name? The Can't think of their name right now. Anyway, they were really cool, and I was just realizing, and there was the energy is so different for those kinds of shows than the big overpriced arena shows. So
Right. Yeah, the arena thing has a very specific thing you got to do. And um, I saw Aerosmith when they went on the
oh,
second part of their career on permanent vacation tour.
I saw that
And
same tour.
oh yeah, so great, except for the docking part. But um,
I've seen them twice when they were like more
oh
raw,
nice.
and then that was more corporate. But yeah,
Yeah,
now they're retired, so it's good to look back on that. It's funny. I was
yeah,
just
but
talking about them
Rush was
today.
the oh really?
Oh, Rush. Yeah, Rush I've seen a couple times too.
Yeah, they took the arena to its full potential, like Pink Floyd did.
Yeah.
Probably taking tips from Pink Floyd.
Well, Neil Peart was my, I'm sure I'm not unique as a drummer, but he was
Right,
my, who I was, I
right.
would have considered him a hero
Yeah,
back in the day. Still
for
do,
sure.
but
Yeah, my drummer in high school, he was incredibly good and could play all of that stuff. He had the books
mhm.
and learned it all note for note. And it was just mind-boggling what he could do with the drums at 17. It was
Yeah.
quite the honor to play with him.
Well, it was there to be grabbed and to be learned, and
Right, and he had the time to do it. He was an odd duck that didn't socialize much, and he had like this horrific stuttering thing, which took a little bit to get used to, but most people didn't really connect with him, and he,
hmm.
yeah. So he just like, screw it, I'm gonna go play drums.
And well, drums are a language too. So
Yeah,
one language isn't working, go to another. So good for him.
exactly. Yeah, he could speak perfectly clearly on the drums.
Cool. So I think, so what do you think about musicians who play benefits instead of charging a professional fee?
Well,
Or is there, a choice?
it depends on the benefit. I mean, if you're playing mostly benefits, then you're probably not pursuing professional career in music. Because I mean, you got to eat, right?
Right.
If you're doing mostly benefits, it requires your own resources to put the show on and stuff like that. I've played a couple benefits, and I've actually had a couple benefits done for me. Um, and it's a lot of work and a lot of expense. And um, so I don't know how anybody could make a career out of playing mostly benefits. But mixing the two, that's honorable. It's just giving back to your community.
Right. Right.
The John Pounds benefit several years ago. That was a beautiful moment. For that situation, and the whole Salem music scene came together to support him,
Hmm.
and that was really great. And um, yeah, but those bands do mostly benefits, so yeah, I don't hold a lot of judgment on how bands do their business.
That's cool.
I like to just dig their music, and if I don't dig their music, try to find the part of it that's really working. Like, even big bands that I don't know or anything. It's like sometimes they're not my cup of tea, but they're really good at what they're doing.
Hmm.
You know, Taylor Swift, Katy Perry are perfect examples. Like, don't listen to that music very often, but when I hear that kind of music, it's always best when done by one of those two, in my opinion. Like, they're just really good at it.
Yeah,
That style's not my cup of tea.
it isn't, but they're really good business people, and you have to give them credit for that.
Yeah. Well, and they can collect a bunch of good musicians and make a really, really well produced, excellent album.
Mhm.
And I can appreciate it. I just don't have to like it. I have to, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're kind
nothing's
of in the
inspiring me to be.
game, yeah.
Yeah, it's not inspiring me to be a Swiftie.
Right, right. When you're an artist yourself, I mean, you're going to be more selective about what you really are invested in terms of loving. But on the other hand, you don't want to knock
Yeah,
people for being savvy business people and being great at what they do.
right.
Yeah. So
Well, and
yeah.
sometimes you can see the excellent artistry in someone else, and and your aesthetics are just not parallel.
Hmm.
Uh, they don't meet. And you're like, okay, I see they're really good, but it's not working for me.
Yeah. But I respect their professionalism, which they obviously have.
Right. The dedication to their craft is
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah. So they set an example in that way.
For
Um,
sure.
so next question. I like this for musicians, and I put it in here because we were all totally shut down during the pandemic. So
Right.
what did you do during the pandemic?
Right before the pandemic started, I worked on making a record label to help people make money via sync licensing. I was studying a lot of how sync licensing works for bands, and was like, well, why don't I, or how sync licensing works for musicians in general at a selfish goals. And I'm like, well, if why don't I open this up to other bands, and then that's just a bigger library that I can work with, and maybe eventually I can get out of delivering pizzas all the time just on a small commission for it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was tried that for about 3 years, and it was a huge disaster. I decided not ever to go into business for myself again, except for the music stuff.
Mm.
And but that knocked out a lot of my practice time and creation time. And yeah, it took me several steps back. And so I've been, since the pandemic, I've been practicing more diligently, and it's hard the second time because you know what it's like to be good, and
Hmm.
you can't do it exactly that way anymore.
I'm going
And
through that too. Yep.
yeah,
So
but
this,
started up
yeah. Hmm.
I started up my meditation channel, Sonic Elevation,
I
on
saw it.
YouTube,
Hmm.
and that was that was the focus of my music making. I was learning a new DAW system and used that to learn all the ins and outs of it. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback from it. People say, "Oh, this really helps." I really put this on. Some people put it on when they're working in the background, and so people actually sit there and will chill out, meditate to it. Most of the videos are like 20 minutes, so little bite-sized things, and try not to get too much into the, you know, has a frequency that will heal your DNA and things like that. But uh, I do use the binaural beats in them. Where those were uh, originally used by anesthesiologists,
Hmm.
and used all the alpha, beta, and delta waves, and was looking into like, is there any actual credibility to binaural beats? And turns out, sure enough, they use it there to, I don't know if they're, I don't know how they work or what they do, but yeah, anesthesiologists used it in their practice.
You think it's to bring the heart rate to the right beats per minute cycle?
I think it has more to do with um, reducing the anxiety,
Hmm.
because the alpha waves kind of um, what they say it does is it excites the brain a little bit, and it's really close frequencies, just a like 6 hertz difference, and you get a little wider in that, and you get the beta waves, And I'm not sure what those really do, but the delta waves are supposed to be really relaxing and can help people sleep.
Hmm.
So, um, I'm not a scientist of that caliber to really back that up, but that's what I've read, and um, I'm like, that's pretty fascinating. And
And the
in
music
making
you're
the music,
hmm
I've noticed that yeah, if I broaden that binaural beat distance out to the delta wave thing, it's a little more chill, and if I bring it closer, you get a little more like not energetic, but it's almost kind of irritating and gets you kind of wiggling around a little bit, brings you out of your like a hypnotic state of some sort.
hmm.
So
I think it's
yeah, I
really
used to use.
important. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's important what you're doing with that because we do live in a very anxiety focused time. It's almost like we're put in these systems that are made to make us anxious. So we didn't do need to fight back. So I appreciate what you're doing there.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, we're living in times where everybody's afraid of a totalitarian thing, and I'm not going to get political on that, but
Mm-hmm.
it seems that everybody has that fear, and they're pointing the finger at other people to create it, and so the anxiety goes through the roof on that,
Yes.
and everybody's like, is something about to go down that I don't want to really have to live through? And but yeah, so everybody's just kind of freaking out on some level. So I'm glad that some folks are getting some help through my meditation music.
Cool. Cool.
It's a huge honor.
Yeah, I've determined that it all started long before I was born, and I'm just living through it. And
Right.
so this music that we make is really important.
Yeah.
Um,
Humans have always had conflicts and weirdness going on. Probably always will.
yeah, because yeah. Anyway, we don't want to go political here. And
For
I know
sure.
we could, but yeah. So the next
Yeah.
question: what band blew your mind the first time you heard them?
I was 16 years old. It was an all ages bar, non-alcoholic drinks and everything. Again, probably a capacity of about 150 people. Um, some really unusual guy that I went to high school with had booked this bands for this show. Um, I think one was the first band was a local Kansas City band from the Art Institute there called Mudhead, and they
Mm.
had super art rock kind of thing, like just doing their own thing. And they had all these wild costumes. It was a little unnerving, some of it. People in these weird trash bag um, costumes dancing around. And then later, this band that no one had heard of yet came out, and they were Primus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the Suck on This tour. I think Frizzle Fry had just come out. So all pre-major label, they're and I just started switched from guitar to bass in that hair metal band, and I'm like, ooh, I could do Eddie Van Halen tricks on bass, and I'll be awesome. And I saw that, and I'm like, well, so much for that idea.
Yeah.
Because he super blew me away.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are just anomalies.
hmm White Zombie blew me away too.
Oh,
I saw them in Lawrence, Kansas at that punk rock venue, the Outhouse, right before they became, the monstrosity that White Zombie and now Rob Zombie are. It was right before it super exploded in popularity. And that was that was pretty mind blowing,
Hmm.
especially in that context. That little tiny punk rock place, and these guys were just killing it. Just, wow.
Yeah.
Another band was Sleep, kind of a stoner band, stoner
Hmm.
metal band.
Uh-huh.
And their stuff is so hypnotic and just, you know, and they actually kind of freaked me out when I saw them. I was just like, these guys are like from some sort of dark, evil dimension, and they're just channeling these brutal, evil riffs, and I'm just like, wow. It was intense. Oh,
That's cool.
Voivod. Saw them, another sci-fi kind of metal band that I love, and yeah, they were amazing. But I didn't expect anything less from them when I saw them.
Wow. Now you're giving me a lot of music I have to catch up with and check out. So
Oh yeah,
um, I have not heard of some of those groups, so now I have homework. Appreciate that.
yeah. Voivod's been around as long as Metallica.
Hmm.
And they're still going. And actually, when Jason Newsted left Metallica, he joined Voivod for a short time,
Hmm.
which I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, yeah, Metallica, take that. If you're going from going insane and dying on the battlefield to being scared of a monster under your bed, it was it's quite the shift for the band, I thought,
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
Metallica.
I haven't
But
followed them as much as I should have, probably. I have one of their CDs here somewhere.
oh yeah, the Cliff Burton era was that's my favorite Metallica. And I'm not trying
Hmm.
to, I mean, they're still a great band. They still do amazing stuff, but a lot of it doesn't. Like I was saying earlier, it's like their aesthetic went in a very different direction than mine did. Kirk Hammett's still awesome. I love his guitar playing, but
Hmm.
the way the band ended up going, I was like, this isn't the same band. I hypothesized that Cliff Burton was one of the big songwriters early on, and
Ah, that would make sense.
after he passed away, Death by Marshall Cabinet was one of the most rock and roll ways to go. But um, yeah, I just thought he was. It appears that he was a major lyrical contributor to the band.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I do think I know I've followed other groups, and who is in the lineup makes such a big difference as to the results of what you have
Oh yeah,
for that product.
for sure. Yeah, it changes the dynamic of the band with a different personality. It's one of the cool things about jazz, though, is that even like you get a band that refines their sound, like Medeski, Martin, and Wood,
Mm-mm.
and then they eventually get gigs and guest spots, and you throw John Scofield into it, and you're like,
Mm-mm.
that's totally different. It's still awesome,
Yeah,
but it's just different. I'm a big John Scofield fan.
I am too. Yeah, there's definitely some of that music right here in this space on CD in different formats. Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, I like
Um,
that soul jazz vibe in general, jazz
yeah,
funk.
yeah. I just like groove kind of jazz. That's kind of my thing that I enjoy the most. Uh, as a jazz drummer, certainly.
For sure.
not necessarily to stretch out a tune, but it's definitely nice knowing you can. Um, but it's like you don't have to be, Max Roach when he was, at the height of his, ferocity. You could be,
for sure.
A little mellower, so
Right.
kind of
Yeah, not
focus.
everybody's Mel Brown.
Exactly. At least that's how I'm kind of seeing my world these days. Speaking of, how do you see the future of local live music?
Um, it seems to be picking up really hard, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yes, it's after, especially with the pandemic, and then kind of pulling out of the scene while I was busy doing day job stuff in the evening.
Yep.
I don't have a good pulse on what's actually happening now or to see how it's going, but I see a lot of people working real hard to get their careers going, and um, it's pretty inspiring. So I think it's going to be just fine as long as we can keep people's uh, business models in mind. But as long as people can kind of figure out how to keep the money in part of it. But that's just a whole another aspect. People have whole careers dealing with just money for the music industry.
Mm.
But so it's all super complicated and kind of just irritating to deal with.
Yes, but it was
Yeah.
before. It wasn't. It's not like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
Um,
the game's all different too.
it totally
You
is.
know,
Yeah, I'm having to be more involved with it now than I used to be. But I
yep.
don't. I'm
All
not
that
complaining. But
responsibility.
yeah.
Yeah. All that responsibility has fallen on the musicians themselves
Hmm.
to do everything.
That's what I'm
And,
seeing.
yeah, technology to do your own recording is kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
Because more people are getting stuff that they can put out, but a lot of people are putting out crap that would never cut it. And just on a recording quality level, I made an EP a few years ago called "Touching the Future," and it's on my Bandcamp.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to get back into it and tweak those mixes and remaster it, and it kind of irritates me. Um, doesn't sound horrible. It just doesn't sound super top shelf, and it's
I can relate.
so I haven't released it into the streaming services or anything yet. I want to spruce it up a little bit, but it's got finished project status in my mind, and so it keeps being put off. Gosh, that was 9 years ago now.
Hmm. Yeah, same here. Stuff I've released, I'm like, oh, that's all when I was younger. A
Right.
lot younger, apparently. A lot
Yeah,
younger than I thought.
and in my composer hat, like it's impossible to get recordings of like an orchestra on my budget. That's like
Mm,
$1 million to record a professional orchestra now. When
mm,
Frank Zappa had his first orchestra album, I don't know how he got connected to the London Symphony Orchestra, but then Frank Zappa was connected to everybody in like this instant magic way. I don't know
hmm.
how he did it living out in the desert in California, but
Cocaine decisions.
uh indeed. Yeah, I'm highly suspect of how he made his money before he made the music. Well, I know exactly what he was doing.
Different times. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could, yeah, well, the industry's still huge in that region, from what I understand.
Hmm.
a whole different industry that we're not talking about at this point. Not one that I know much about.
Yeah, me either. Um, but you're right. I mean, everyone's got a side hustle. So even like I have a day job, and so music's kind of my side hustle right now. Although I'm thinking, let's see what happens. But so yeah, Zappa's got his music gig. What's his side hustle? Everyone's got one, right?
Mm-hmm. Zappa's side hustle. I don't know. When he
Yeah.
was starting out, I'm pretty sure he was just selling drugs. He probably had the savvy to do that and use that to further his music. At the same time, the guy was so smart, but it's not the path I took, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, me either. So I do have a lot of Zappa around here,
Yeah.
different formats,
So
vinyl, CD, MP3, all that.
actually, when I was in college, I had a fellow student who was a massive Frank Zappa fan. And he did arranged a whole show of Zappa's tunes for big band. And that was a wild time. I got to play guitar in that. And yeah, that was super fun hearing it. As long as Ahmet Zappa doesn't hear about that, I think we're going to be okay.
I'm sure they can't keep up with all the people covering their stuff, his
Yeah,
amazing material.
it really is.
A whirlwind of material.
Indeed.
So, next question: how do you go about getting gigs, or when you did, or maybe in the future or now?
Well, the primary musical hat that I like to wear is that of a composer. So gigs, as it were, um, means a little something different. I don't have a band right now. I am playing with the drummer, just kind of trying to get some musical real time interaction. But the life of a composer is a lot of planning. It's kind of like being an architect that doesn't get to live in his building, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the orchestral piece that I did, I didn't play anything on that. I'm a guitar player. Unless I write something for guitar with orchestra, I'm not going to be in the orchestra. And so that was really fun. And it was really cool to hear that music be played. Really honored that it got played at all. And, but, it got played once. And I just happened to be the person conducting that orchestra was the Willamette Falls Symphony Orchestra. And Mark Perlman was the conductor.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a philosophy professor at Western Oregon. I was taking his class, and somehow I figured out that he did that. So I asked him if maybe I could get performed, and he was totally open to it. So that worked out. If you're going to college for music, I would say really make strong bonds and with your cohort and
Mm.
maintain them after you graduate. Because the coolest gig I ever got was somebody that I went to school with, and we collaborated on some dance. She was a choreographer primarily, and I wrote some music for her, and that went really well. Excuse me. And she moved to Germany, which was smart because people pay for the arts there. And she put on a
Mm.
children's dance theater or children's ballet theater production of Just So stories. Uh, Rudyard Kipling, who wrote The Jungle Book and stuff like that. He wrote these bedtime
Yes.
stories for his daughter, and they're all kind of origin stories, like how the camel got its hump and things like that, how the leopard got its spots. And so we set 3 of those stories. And she choreographed them. It was supposed to be a traveling thing. And we played a couple towns. And, but it was just guitar and clarinet. It's all I had to work with. And so they had a couple of dancers involved also and a narrator. And so she flew me out to Germany to oversee the rehearsals and help facilitate the production. And I got to spend 6 weeks in Germany as a composer.
Wow.
It was a gig of a lifetime for me. And I'm eternally grateful to Haley Glickfeld Bielman. Sorry, Haley, I mispronounced your name. But yeah, Haley Glickfeld Bielman. She's a powerhouse.
Hmm.
She's in Berlin now.
Amazing.
But yeah, how I do about getting gigs is just trying to maintain relationships with musicians that I respect and want to play with, and try to reach out to people.
Okay.
Mostly a gig for me is more collaborating and making a good recording of something um, that we can be proud of and put out, do stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's a cool way of looking at it. I think you're hitting on where I'm at with it too, where I think I would have been more impatient with this in the before times, but now I'm like, that is the gig, just us collaborating, and then
right,
because it's like a startup now. It's like 3 years of everything shut down is a long time. So
right.
I feel like I'm retraining myself. I'm trying to remember what I did before, and try to expand that somehow. It's not so easy.
No, it's a it's a mind crushing kind of thing to grok. You know, what does this look like now? How much of it from before still applies? What doesn't apply? And I kind of feel fortunate that I'm not pounding pavement to clubs and venues and stuff and saying, "Hey, I want to play at your place," and doing all that.
Mm,
Because that's always the hard part, like being in a performing group.
yeah,
Yeah, just getting those gigs, and it happens. You do it, and you get gigs, and the more relationships you build in a positive manner, more gigs you're going to get. So,
it's
just
true. I
however
mean,
you want to
yeah,
define a gig.
it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. That I've been doing some of it, and that's what it feels like to me. I'm having some successes, and I'm really thankful for those. But it's the amount of work. It is a lot of work.
Yeah, and I think that there are upstart promoters and um, you know movers shakers for the industry that aren't necessarily pursuing their own musical career that come up and say, "Hey, I really liked your band. I'd like to try to get you booked at this place." And I remember when I was younger, somebody would say that, and I'd be like instantly suspicious of them. Like, what do they want to take me for? How much is this going to cost me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we got to stop doing that and working together, because there are people who specialize in finding a band and then finding other bands that's going to be great for the one show at this particular venue, right? I mean, there's people that have their whole career doing that.
True.
They're not out to screw you. They're out to, they got to eat, they got to pay their rent, but they're not out to just usually not out to outright screw the bands over.
as long as they'll have work with a contract of some sort, I would say, okay, I will trust that person. But
right.
when they weasel out of a contract, that's when I say, wait a minute, I know what you're up
Right.
to. I'm
Yeah, you
not
got
going
to
to end
have
up.
that
Yeah, yeah.
got to have that clause in the contract for that situation too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, when you start getting into contracts and stuff, I mean, that's first it's smart. You know, like this is what we agree on while we're like in a good mood. This is what's going to help us stay in a good mood. And then if things go south and you're not in a good mood anymore, at least you have some guidelines to, you
Right.
know,
That's the reason for a contract. Exactly. Because
exactly.
it's,
And
I can't help it. It rained when, on that day when it wasn't expected or something,
right,
we still need to get paid. So, yeah.
right. You got to have signed contracts on, legally stuff.
Yeah.
There's a P.T. Barnum, I think it was the circus promoter. One of his famous quotes was, a verbal contract isn't even as good as the paper it's written on.
Exactly. I at least want to have someone say it to me in an email that, yeah, we're doing this and these are, this is the
Right,
agreement. If I can get at least that, I'm probably gonna, we're not making big money here. At least I'm not. I'd like to.
right. Well, even, people that are starting out in that promotion business, they're not making big money. They're just making a little bit. They're just like a band as far as the business end of their lives go. Like they're just trying to get established and they have hopes and dreams of getting better and better and better at what they do and better gigs and stuff like that. It's just like a band that way. And
Yeah.
getting people to work together on that I think that would be the most beneficial thing for musicians in general. But
And that's an important part of it. But I still think we have to, then we come back to why are we doing this? And it's definitely for community more than anything else. That's, I think, important to come
for
back around
sure.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the whole point of this podcast. I was realizing, like, why would I do this? And I'm like,
Oh yeah. No, I'm really glad you're doing this. This is great for, for especially the local scene and um, connecting us. And, I'm super honored to be on here. So
cool.
that's great.
Well, I'm honored to have you.
Well, thank you.
And we've actually gone way over a little bit over an hour. So it's supposed to be an hour.
Yeah.
So I guess we're winding down. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I'm honored to have you. And so, uh, yeah, at this point of the podcast, we'll be transitioning to playing your song, your MP3 of your music. So you let me know which
Okay.
one that is, and I'll put it on at the end. I'll give it a little intro and stuff.
All right. So this one is the end of the Mischief of the Fae, the orchestral piece.
Cool.
And it's an archival recording, so the recording's not great, but the um, Willamette Falls Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Mark Perlman. He's he's the one conducting, and was performed in 2010. I think it was December
Hmm.
7th or something like that. So
I did give it a listen. It's great. Very
thank you.
powerful. Yeah, powerful.
Yeah, and if we put the last, I don't know, 30 seconds of it on, that's the part of the recording that sounds the best.
Okay, we'll do that.
I guess this is the part of the interview where your editing goes haywire.
I leave on as much as possible. I try not to. I mean, what I find is when you start editing, trying to edit in between on these
Mm.
conversations, it's too much work in Pro Tools. So uh, best to leave it. I
Yeah.
mean, unless someone says something that they just want deleted from, no, don't release this because I said something that was
Yeah, I
insane.
didn't mean to shit all over this fellow music scene person. Can
Yeah,
you cut that?
that kind of thing, right? Whoops,
Right.
just kind of came out, but yeah.
So
But we didn't do that today, so that's good.
no, everybody's great doing their own things. We all have our frustrations and disagreements with people from time to time, and sometimes they wash out okay, and sometimes it's just like, well, it's a bummer, but I have hard feelings to anybody in the scene. I wish people I've worked with where things didn't work out, but doing good stuff. Like,
Yeah.
keep it up. I want you to win.
Yeah, especially, I mean, whatever happened, 20 years ago for me is, who cares? We just lived through a pandemic. We're starting over. Um,
Right.
let's all give ourselves a break. Let's start fresh.
Definitely. So this one is the theme music to a podcast that I do all the incidental and random music for. The podcast is called The Care and Feeding of Werewolves. It's an audio drama about paranormal beings and their lives, and it's hilarious, it's heavy, it's silly, it's serious. There's been about 26 episodes now.
Wow.
I'm really proud of it. My brother Freddie Elmore is um, the co-writer and one of the voice actors, and I've actually done a little voice acting on it, just a small bit part. It was kind of fun. I don't have giant dreams of voice acting, but I was glad to do that. Um, so if you get a chance to check that out, I would appreciate it. That's really
I did
it's
see
a
it.
riot.
I'll be honest, I haven't listened to it yet, but I did see it, but uh, it's just because I'm pretty scattered in my
Sure.
responsibilities, but I definitely do want to check it out, and I will.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. A lot of but yeah, this example I've got here is the theme song for it. Um,
Cool. I did listen to that just before we came on the air here, and I thought, yeah, okay, that's a better opening theme song than I have on this one. So
oh,
I was just like, drum roll. That's all. Let's just give it a little drum roll. I know anyone can do it pretty much, but it's like, and then we're on.
for
But
sure. Yeah, just jump right into it. Yeah, we
yeah,
got the whole there's a whole voiceover that my brother does beginning of each episode over that music and sets the scene and everything. But
cool.
the third example is
It
one of
has
my
that mystery
meditation
sound to
tracks.
it too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very makes me want to watch Agatha Christie or something, and the just the way it sounds.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to go for that kind of goth vibe, mystery, paranormal
Hmm.
thing, um, without evoking too much Danny Elfman into it,
Mm.
because he's the paranormal goth movie soundtrack deity of all time. His Tim Burton work. But yeah, I tried to capture a little bit of that vibe and without making it obvious. So
It worked.
thank you. The third track is one of the videos, or one of the music to my meditation music videos that I have on the YouTube channel Sonic Elevation. And there's a very similar channel called Sonic Elevator. It's much bigger, so it'll come up in search results first. But I'm there as Sonic Elevation, so and I'm pretty proud of that work. I
Hmm.
think it's definitely stretched me out in terms of uh, the production end of it, learning to mix, and I'm using Reaper and
Hmm.
learned to get around that pretty well. Kind of migrated over there from Pro Tools because you don't have $2,500 to drop on a full version of Pro Tools. So,
Oh, wow, yeah.
and Reaper does all that stuff and just fine. Plenty of records being made with Reaper. Not a,
Good to know.
yeah, not an industry standard among A-listers, but um, definitely I've seen some tutorials. People are mixing some recognizable bands in it, so that's cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely always open-minded to yeah, I right now I'm doing a Pro Tools subscription and I'm thinking I don't like subscriptions, so we'll see what next year brings.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I'll look
thinking
into
about
that.
going. All right,
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, um, yeah, the transition from the workflow of Reaper is very different than that of Pro Tools.
Hmm.
So, and the keyboard shortcuts are extremely different, but all of the things you got to do are still there to be done, just a different way of doing it. So it took me a little while to translate my keyboard shortcuts into Reaper, but I got used to it. Probably can't run Pro Tools anymore because of it, but that's all right.
Well, the big thing is if you have a digital audio workspace that's working for you and where you can get your thoughts out there. Um,
Right. That's all you need.
yep, I would agree.
Yeah, if you get, as long as you know how to play your instrument, you can hang.
Yeah. Oh, and hang is a big part of it. I mean, if you're not a good hang, then what are you? If no one wants to be
Right.
around you, then um,
That's
doesn't
right.
matter how talented you are. Yep.
Right.
So that's why I'm trying to be a better human being myself.
Always
Yep.
trying to improve for sure.
Hmm. Some days I wonder, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. A
yeah,
couple steps back, many steps forward,
yeah.
still progress.
In a Babylon,
And we all get lessons from time to time. It's like, whoops, probably shouldn't have worked it that way. But, oh
right?
well. Now I know better, so I'll do better.
Exactly. So, and we're all getting a clean start here with this, whatever this we've stepped into after this pandemic is scattering on the other side of it.
Yeah. The weird normal.
Yeah. The weird normal. Okay, that's cool. I like that. Um, anyway, I think we've kind of gone the full gamut here for this podcast
Yeah.
interview, and it's been a huge honor to interview you, Kevin. And
Well, thank you so much. I was super flabbergasted when you reached out to me, and I was super honored. So I'm thank you very much for having me on here.
well, the whole point for me is to I'm trying to figure out all this and to build community somehow, um, and I don't know. I was sitting in the Denver airport, and I said I think I'm gonna start a podcast. And here we
Oh,
are.
wow. Nice. Well, you're
My
doing well.
cool.
Keep it at it. So,
We'll do.
yeah. All
Anyway,
right.
it's gonna be probably a couple weeks from now before this goes on. But some Tuesday you'll see it on. You'll see it posted
Okay,
on
cool.
iHeartRadio and many others. Whatever I can get through.
Right. What are you using to distribute?
Spreaker is what I went with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my brother uses Podbean.
Podbean. I think I looked at that one too.
Okay.
I don't know. I made a decision that day, and that's I went with Spreaker. I, I'm not sure if it was the best or not, but
Gotcha.
that's what I did. Anyway, it's on iHeart, which is what the nice thing is. You
Yeah.
can just hit play, so people don't have to subscribe to it. So I got that part
Yeah.
right.
Cool.
Anyway, I hope we can, keep building this talking back and forth uh,
For sure.
relationship and see where it goes.
Yeah. I like how it's kind of evolved from like by some mysterious method of the Salem music scene, we became Facebook friends, and then
Yeah.
it's like just through years of interacting with like buttons and reactions, like this guy's pretty cool.
Well, it's
But
funny. Salem's on my radar right now because I'm friends with Paul DeBali, and brought me into the Gusto Brothers, which are a Salem band, and I rehearse with them once in
oh,
a
okay,
while, and we have, I think, at least one gig with them. I'm playing at least once with them, uh, but everything is kind of madness right now. I don't know where any of this is going to land, but for this summer,
for
I've got a few
sure.
gigs, and so at least I'm not. And yeah, Salem's kind of on my radar. I'm doing the with them the Salem Farmers Market
Oh, cool.
this summer. I forget the date, um,
I've
but
got
yeah,
a
from
question for you.
Corvallis, Salem is a good target. So, what was your question?
What would your session rate be for a surf tune?
Oh, okay, good question. uh, well, right now I'm probably quite affordable because I have a day job, so
Okay,
that makes me more affordable. If I was just doing musician without it, if I was just without a net, I would probably be more expensive. So
yeah.
I would
All right.
say we can talk about it, but I haven't really figured out a price for something like that. It's probably not. It could
All
be.
right.
We could talk about it
Yeah, it
whether it's
wouldn't be
money or potential other things or however we want to work it.
okay. Sure, yeah. Yeah, I'm super flexible. So,
Cool.
um, yeah, I've just got this surf tune that's all fleshed out except for the drums. So it'd be the bummer part of playing to a strict click. But
I like
um,
doing surf drums. That's one of the. I
okay,
think one of my tunes that I put on Spotify is called Surf Drums, and it's just
nice,
um, just something I did in the kitchen I was in at the time with a cheap uh, little digital recorder, and then
cool.
ended up on Spotify.
Oh wow,
That sounds pretty good.
yeah, I'm wearing my King Ghidorah shirt right now. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I haven't, but I'm
I'll
trying
send
to
you a link.
learn. Cool.
Yeah, actually, that'd be a good one for you to reach out to. Um, they're really good. They're also based here in McMinnville.
Oh, okay. I love
Um,
McMinnville. Yeah, it's been a
yeah, there's two bands in McMinnville that are super awesome. Um, this King Ghidorah and Ships to Rome
hmm,
would be another great interview target for you.
I'll write those things
Both of
down.
those bands are really good. Yeah, I'll send you links to them too.
Cool.
And of course, we three are from McMinnville. They were on one of the like The Voice or American Idol or something like that, and did it just right where they didn't win the grand prize, so they can actually have a career that they control.
Oh,
But they're touring like for real now,
hmm,
and they're fantastic musicians as well. But it might
wow.
be more of a religious thing. I don't listen to their music too much, but I went to school with um, one. He was playing drums in school. He was just incredible.
You'll have to send me those
Um,
links, definitely.
yeah, we'll do. Um, maybe I forget how you recommend Facebook friends, but I'll send you their Facebook pages so you can message them through there.
Sure.
Reach out to them.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I don't have any more scheduled after this. I was kind of getting ahead of myself on all of this, so I kind of stopped at this one. So yeah, good. These are great ideas. I appreciate that.
for sure. Yeah, glad to help out.
Awesome. Well, it's been well an hour, almost an hour and a half. We were supposed scheduled for an hour, so I think we've done pretty
Yeah,
well
I think
here.
the last 10 or 15 minutes I figure weren't part of the broadcast portion of the deal anyway, so just kind of talking business on stuff.
Just talking. Yeah, I'll figure out
Yeah,
where to cut it off. But at any rate, I think I should shift gears, and
me too. Yeah, I got stuff to do. So,
I've got to
but
work in
man,
the
super
morning.
super bunch of thanks for having me on the show. I
Well, thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
This would not be possible if people like you didn't want to come on here and talk about, uh, what makes you tick, and
Yeah,
where you've been. And what I find is I'm really excited about how enthusiastic people are in getting on here and just talking, and I get out of the way, and
right.
and let that happen, which is a skill I've learned from my day job. So
Oh, good.
it helps, just to be
Very
like,
good.
you're the customer,
Right.
Uh, so I hope you've felt like you were. I hope you feel like you were treated that way. Um,
I was. Yeah,
cool,
it's been fun.
cool.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to you in the
Yeah,
future too.
yeah. We'll stay in touch, and
Been
yeah,
trying to figure out my schedule to come see you play in Corvallis, but
yeah.
a little
Um,
bit of a hike, but not definitely not insurmountable.
well, right now my focus is playing outside of Corvallis. I'm playing in Independence next Friday, and
Oh, that's halfway in between.
yeah, and I'm playing, like I said, Salem Farmers Market once this summer with the all different groups. There, I do have one thing in Corvallis with a gypsy butterfly. I'm doing hand percussion,
Oh, cool.
and she's dancing, and she does. So that's only a half hour thing, but it's garden, kind of a garden party thing. So
Right
I don't
on.
know.
Those are
All these things
fun.
are all different, keeps me on my toes.
Yep. It's good to branch out in all the different directions like that. That's one of my favorite things about being a musician. And one of the cool things I learned in college was just how to at least sufficiently hang in a variety of genres and styles. So
Exactly. Yeah. That was when I first learned to be the drummer that I am. The whole point was you can do all of these things, once you have the tools and the discipline
exactly.
and the
Yep.
creativity.
Yeah. Got to keep that work ethic going.
Yeah, that's what the pandemic really did a great job of destroying for people, was that work ethic. That
Well, it either destroyed it or it galvanized it, depending
Yeah,
on the people. Like a lot of people, I don't think very many people just kind of went, I'll just kind of keep on as I'm going and not play
yeah.
out. What a lot of people doubled down on their discipline. And a lot of people just said, screw it, I'm selling all my stuff.
I
So,
read Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, and it really
oh, it's a
helped me
great
to,
book.
yeah, it
Yeah,
just got me motivated. I'm like, okay, I could either just lay down and just give up, or I could declare war on this, So I went in that
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I too wait for the news, but fortunately, the news shows up every day promptly at 9 a.m. It's my favorite quote from that book.
Oh, okay, right, right. I vaguely remember that. I read every word of the book, but
Yeah, that was the one that stuck out to me. I'm like,
hmm,
ooh, that's can't argue with that.
exactly. It's that the pandemic. I feel like it's made everyone make excuses for not doing anything, especially with music and bands. And so when you find people who are fighting back on that, then yeah, you pay attention to those people.
Right, right. Steph, Steph K seems to be one of the people that did that, just doubled down on things, and she's coming out of the pandemic on fire.
Wow.
I don't know if you're friends with her,
No,
but
not that I know of.
yeah, she's down in Eugene,
Okay.
and she's kind of like my relationship with her is much like mine is with you, where it's like we comment on each other's stuff and react to it, but um, haven't hung out in real time at if ever.
Right.
So
This kind of counts, although, yeah, it's
that is
radio.
totally
It's,
counts.
yeah. So yeah, I do. I think it's cool. So I'll check that one out too. Of course, what's her name again?
Steph Kay
Okay.
got a group called Drive to Space. I think you would dig it. Real jazzy, also huge Deadhead.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
she plays keyboards.
I'll
Sometimes
check
gets
that
on
out.
that
Cool.
funky roads tip, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Good groove.
Hmm. I will check that out.
Kind of there for a while. I had a dream band of you, her, and me on bass. I think that would be a fun band. But between McMinnville, Eugene, and Corvallis, it would be brutal getting together. So
Yeah, I have tried.
probably won't happen.
I have work bands that were on that kind of geographic situation, and yeah, it can. I mean, I've actually had it work, but it's not something I would
Yeah,
recommend as a starting point if you can avoid it.
right. Yeah, the logistics suck, but sometimes sucky logistics are worth the result.
Well, yeah, I
So
mean, you never know. This so and so is willing to drive like a crazy amount to make all this work, and so you just end up in that
yeah,
situation, and then but later on down the road, you end up finding a more of a middle point where everyone can rehearse, and um,
right.
so like I've got to be willing to drive a certain amount too, to make this thing work in the long term. I've done it. Yeah, I've seen those kind of
Sure.
things. Um, but yeah, and there's something when you realize this person has made this much commitment, so that's on me too.
Right. You
So
got to honor that
right,
or just not play with them.
right, because I mean it is huge when somebody says, I'm so into this, I'm willing to do this. Yeah, I mean
Right.
that's
Yeah. Honor is a two-way street.
exactly. So anyway,
Right. Right on.
I I think we're kind of winding down the podcast. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we call it a wrap?
Well, it's the 21st century, so I'd be remiss to uh, not say like and subscribe and all that kind of jazz.
Oh,
Like check out the stuff. Hope you like it. If everybody likes it.
yeah. I
And
mean,
if you
that's
don't, that's okay.
yeah.
My aesthetic's not everybody else's.
Well,
I may have a
that's
different aesthetic laying around that you'll like later, but given people ask me what kind of music do you make, and I'm just it's a lot of different stuff.
yeah. And
So,
yeah, it's a fickle situation, with people who listening to music and then deciding whether they like it or not. So yeah, it's good not to take it personally. But I like what you sent me. I was listening to them.
oh,
I
thanks. I'm
liked.
glad. Yeah,
So on that note, I think I will call it a wrap. And this has
sounds
been
good.
Musicians Viewpoints with Kevin Elmore. And what a great conversation. It's been really fun.
Yes, it has. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We'll stay in tune, stay in touch.
Sounds good.
Cool. Wow, that was a great interview with Kevin Elmore. And I will leave you today with a couple sound files that Kevin has graciously sent to be included at the end of this podcast. One is for a soundtrack for a werewolves podcast called Cryptids, is the sound file he sent, and then a classical piece called The Mischief of the Fae. Enjoy.